So this is going to be me thinking about Teilhard, trying to think with Teilhard, I suppose you could say. Trying to write a paper on him right now um, about what he calls the within of things and how that relates to a cosmic purpose or a direction to evolution. Um, and I'm going to read a little bit from the human phenomenon and then go through some notes that I have and see what turns up. Teilhard says, Man is unable to see himself entirely unrelated to mankind. Neither is he able to see mankind unrelated to life, nor life unrelated to the universe. Thence stems the basic plan of this work. Pre-life, life, thought. Three events sketching in the past and determining for the future survival, a single and continuing trajectory. The curve of the phenomenon of man. The phenomenon of man. I stress this. This phrase is not chosen at random, but for three reasons. First, to assert that man, in nature, is a genuine fact falling, at least partially, within the scope of the requirements and methods of science. Secondly, to make plain that of all the facts offered to our knowledge, none is more extraordinary or more illuminating. Thirdly, to stress the special character of the essay I am presenting. I repeat that my only aim and my only vantage ground in these pages is to try to see, that is to say, to try to develop a homogeneous and coherent perspective of our general extended experience of man, a whole which unfolds. So please do not expect a final explanation of things here, nor a metaphysical system. Neither do I want any misunderstanding about the degree of reality which I accord to the different parts of the film I am projecting. When I try to picture the world before the dawn of life, or life in the Paleozoic era, I do not forget that there would be a cosmic contradiction in imagining a man as spectator of those phases which ran their course before the appearance of thought on earth. I do not pretend to describe them as they really were, but rather as we must picture them to ourselves so that the world may be true for us at this moment. What I depict is not the past in itself, but as it must appear to an observer standing on the advanced peak where evolution has placed us. It is a safe and modest method, and yet, as we shall see, it suffices, through a symmetry, to bring out ahead of us surprising visions of the future. Even reduced to these humble proportions, the views I am attempting to put forward here are, of course, largely tentative and personal. Yet, inasmuch as they are based on arduous investigation and sustained reflection, they give an idea, by means of one example, of the way in which the problem of man presents itself in science today. When studied narrowly in himself by anthropologists or jurists, man is a teeny, even a shrinking creature. His overpronounced individuality conceals from our eyes the whole to which he belongs. As we look at him, our minds incline to break nature up into pieces and to forget both its deep interrelations and its measureless horizons. We incline to all that is bad in anthropocentrism. And it is this that still leads scientists to refuse to consider man as an object of scientific scrutiny except through his body. The time has come to realize that an interpretation of the universe, even a positivist one, remains unsatisfying unless it covers the interior as well as the exterior of things, mind as well as matter. The true physics is that which will, one day, achieve the inclusion of man in his wholeness in a coherent picture of the world. I hope I shall persuade the reader that such an attempt is possible, and that the preservation of courage and the joy of action in those of us who wish and know how to plumb the depths of things depend on it. In fact, I doubt whether there is a more decisive moment for a thinking being Then when the scales fall from his eyes and he discovers that he is not an isolated unit lost in the cosmic solitudes, and realizes that a universal will to live converges and is harmonized in him. In such a vision, man is seen not as a static center of the world, as he for long believed himself to be, but as the axis and leading shoot of evolution, which is something much finer. So, Teilhard is trying to see and to show us how to see the within of things. And it seems that science, for most of its history, has ignored the within of things, because of what Descartes said, that the mind or the soul is in no way related to the body. In fact, it exists entirely separate from it. And because of this, ontological dualism between thought and matter, the human being has come to experience itself as other than the universe, as in conflict with a foreign entity. We experience ourselves as in space and time rather than as space and time. We wouldn't even have a word control unless we were experiencing ourselves as something in a world capable of manipulating it. Causality is an issue for Teilhard, because if we've understood matter, if science has understood matter as essentially a collection of determined mechanisms, then how could there possibly be room for this other dimension, this within, which somehow values the future and becomes more and more conscious through the course of evolution? Because for Teilhard, even the energy which existed immediately after the Big Bang was somehow psychic, somehow alive, somehow anticipating life, and it was rushing to come alive, in fact. And so there's a law which Teilhard shows us in this book, which he calls the law of complexity and consciousness. And he says that as matter becomes more organized, the intensity of its interior experience increases. And as Teilhard saw it, it was the human being, at least on Earth, which had achieved the greatest degree of complexity, not only individually in each of our brains, but collectively as human civilization. And what he called the new sphere, which is what we're embodying or disembodying, depending on how you look at it right now. So he's trying to show us that the universe is a continuum, a whole which unfolds. And that requires recognizing that we are the whole. And so it's, of course, a mysticism. I mean, Teilhard's book is more poetic than it is rational or strictly logical. I mean, there is a kind of logical proof in here, you could say, but that's not the important part of the book, I don't think. Because he's trying to show us something that we are, and so it's an attempt to mirror nature for us, the book of nature.